So without further ado, I want to introduce and pass it off to Dr. Richard Colletti to get us started. Dr. Colletti, you ready to go?
Hi, everyone. It's great to see some familiar names in the chat box, and also particularly some unfamiliar ones, so new folks. It's a real pleasure for me to have a chance to speak to you. This presentation is very similar to the one that I gave during the live online community conference on April 3rd. Next slide, please. I'm going to give a brief update of the state of ImproveCareNow. We currently have 110 GI centers. Next. And just click away here, Chris. In England, Belgium, Qatar, and throughout the US. And next, please. These centers represent 45 of the top 50 pediatric GI programs, as well as 9 of the 10 honor roll children's hospitals as ranked by US News and World Report. But as you know, I like to use Lake Wobegon ranking. If you've ever read Prairie Home Companion, and Garrison Keillor talked about how in Lake Wobegon, all the women were strong, all the men were good looking, and all the children were above average. I say that because all the centers in ImproveCareNow are above average because they're doing things that no other centers are doing. Next, please. Our culture is that we all teach, we all learn from each other. We steal shamelessly, but we also share seamlessly. And we know if you work alone, you can go fast, but to go far, we need to work together, and that's what we do. Next, please. This shows how we've grown over time, starting all the way to the left in around 2006. From just 8 centers all the way up to 110 centers now. The centers have 950 pediatric gastroenterologists, and they are taking care of over 30,000 patients at the moment. And this represents a bit over half the patients cared for by pediatric gastroenterologists in the US. Next. Altogether, we have 45,000 patients in the registry with 330,000 visits. Next, keep going. So we're the largest and fastest growing pediatric IBD registry in the world. Next, which means we have a gold mine of data for learning. And that's why we also do research as well as improvement science. Next, please. So how are we doing? Our goal is to improve the health care and cost of children with inflammatory bowel disease. And this shows how we've done since going back to April 2007 in improving the health. Looking at the clinical remission rate, remission means patients feeling well, functioning normally and fully active. And you can see early on, the clinical remission rate was down around 60%, and now it's over 80%. And this is because the centers have learned how to do quality improvement and provide more reliable and proactive care. Next, please. And this shows sustained remission, which we define as clinical remission with no relapse for at least 12 months. That's much harder to achieve, but you can see how when we started, it was way down at 20%, and now it's over 50%. So we've made some progress over 15 or 13 years, and we're still inching up bit by bit. Next, please. And you can see that the number of centers that have achieved a clinical remission rate of 80% or more has increased from 0 all the way up to over 63%. Next, please. This is more technical. The physician global assessment is a more subjective measure. That's what we use because it's easy to obtain at every visit. Another measure of clinical remission is what's called the Short Pediatric Crohn's Disease Activity Index, or PCDAI. And you can see, and that's a more objective test. And you can see that the physician global assessment and the short PCDAI are actually very close, which gives us confidence that we're making fairly good assessments. Next, please. And then just similarly looking at patients with just ulcerative colitis, there's a pediatric ulcerative colitis activity index. And here the gap between the PUCI, as it's called, and the physician global assessment is a little wider, but it parallels. You see how the lines tend to parallel each other. And there are various theories as to why there is a difference. But I suspect that the physician global assessment may actually be more accurate. Next, please. I'd like to describe to those of you who aren't familiar with all the things that ImproveCareNow is doing, some of our initiatives and activities. One is Pathways to Mastery, which is a way of applying improvement science to help each center get to a higher level of performance, and including one group of centers that's working on standardizing clinical care and at the same time personalizing clinical care using therapeutic drug monitoring or measuring drug levels. Another group of centers is working on helping patients be more adherent or more compliant with their treatment plan. And a third group of centers is working on finding ways to improve sustained remission. We have a very active program in patient and family engagement with support from a grant from the Clare Foundation to make more patients, parents, and families aware of ImproveCareNow and be able to learn about ImproveCareNow, and particularly about to help them take care of themselves and their family members. Chris Keck is leading that effort, and he's doing a fabulous job, including most recently getting patients to sign up for our electronic newsletter called Circle. If you're not signed up for that, you can go to ImproveCareNow.org and click on Join and sign up to receive that. Our parent working group and patient advisory council continue to be very active. And I'd like to congratulate Catalina Bernblum, who'll be speaking shortly, who's a co-chair of the Patient Advisory Council, who recently applied for and obtained a grant from Genentech of $15,000 to enable patients to attend live community, in-person community conferences. Also want to point out that we are developing an ImproveCareNow ICN exchange, which will be a way for everyone to communicate with everyone else by posting messages and reports and pictures and their PDSA and charts, so that we can all learn from each other and teach each other more seamlessly. We have a number of trials, clinical trials, that's tests of new interventions. The PRODUCE trial is testing the effectiveness of the specific carbohydrate diet. And that's being done at a number of ImproveCareNow centers. The combined trial is looking at the combination of methotrexate with Remicade or Humira to see if combining methotrexate with those biological medications improves outcomes. And there's a new study that hasn't started yet that will be looking at social disparities, income, ethnicity, in the outcomes, their effect on the outcomes in inflammatory bowel disease. We have active leadership groups, the physician leadership group, the research coordinator group, nurses, SWAP, social worker, psychologists working together, dietitians, very engaged in ImproveCareNow. And we're working to develop new leaders within ImproveCareNow. And of course, many of you participated in the live online community conference and are now participating, of all of you, in this virtual community conference. And I'd like to point out that the New England group, about 8 centers in New England, had a regional meeting for the first time at Massachusetts General Hospital. That was very effective. So there's a lot of energy, activity, collaboration, sharing, and it's just fabulous to be part of this community. Next slide, please. And so you can see how we're using improvement science, patient engagement, and contributing to the development of better drugs in order to get higher remission rates. And you see how we've been able to do that. Next slide, please. So next slide. We are living life in the time of coronavirus. And it reminded me of a book I read about 25 years ago, written by the Nobel Prize, the Chilean Nobel Prize winner, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who wrote Love in the Time of Cholera. I decided to reread it. I'm in the middle of it, and it's more about love than it is about cholera. It's a terrific book, by the way. But of course, life in the time of coronavirus is not terrific. It has us all very worried, and there's so much uncertainty. We're trapped in our homes. And I'm sure as patients, it's harder to figure out how to get your care. And as families, worrying about your children getting the best care. And hospitals have been transformed from general purpose care providers to being focused on COVID care centers. And they're suffering considerably financially as a result of that, but they're committed to doing the right thing. And it's terrific to see how hard everyone's trying to do their best. One more click there, Chris. And so, you know, the Chinese word for crisis is danger plus opportunity. So while we're scrambling to do the best on a day-to-day basis, we also have the opportunity to look at how we can innovate and change care and make changes that will perpetuate. And telemedicine, as many of you, I suspect, have or will soon experience, telemedicine was being done by only a few % of physicians, and now it's done by over 50 or 60%. So in just 2 weeks, there's been a transformation. So it's a worrisome time, but also a time for opportunity. Next slide, please. So, and there you all are. There's the community, that wonderful Improve Care Now community. And as many of you know, and as I said at the live online community conference, this is my last year in Improve Care Now. I'll be stepping down as executive director. And the evolution of the Improve Care Now has far exceeded everyone's expectations. And what you are today, none of us dared to imagine when ICN began in 2006. And it's so inspiring what the Improve Care Now community has accomplished and how you've improved the lives of so many. And I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to work with many of you and to steal shamelessly and share seamlessly with you, and to experience your selflessness and compassion. And I know you will continue to go far and to go further together. So thanks again thank you to all for all that you've given. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce the incoming clinical director, Dr. Shehzad Saeed. Shehzad?
Thank you, Dick and Chris. Before I start and talk a little bit about the topic, which is the focus of today's virtual conference, but also some of my background, like I did back at the live virtual community conference in early April. Really want to thank and acknowledge the tremendous contribution that Dr. Colletti has made to our community, and really an innovative approach and way to push the envelope and create a partnership model for delivering care, as well as looking at outcomes and bringing QI to the forefront of clinical practice. So we thank all of us, thank Dr. Colletti for his contributions and innovations. Next slide, please, Chris. So I just wanted to, a lot of the folks on the call who have worked with me and have known me know somewhat of my background. This is a little bit of a rehash from the virtual community conference that we had, live community conference that we had in April, just to set the background about my beginnings. Originally from Pakistan, have done my residency here in Chicago and fellowship in Boston, and have had various roles during my clinic and professional growth. Have been involved with ICN since 2010, so it's a decade-long association that has allowed me to really move into new directions and serve as the clinical director, which is a new role envisioned as Dr. Colletti is transitioning, focusing on providing support, direction, and QI knowledge for the network. I have also been active in our other professional organizations, which is both Growth and Colitis Foundation and our professional GI organization. But what distinguishes my involvement, and which is the DNA of Improve Care Now, is this concept of partnership and co-production. Next slide, please, Chris. Which is to me, really a distinguishing feature, characteristic of Improve Care Now. Lots of professional organizations are in existence focused on improving and finding the cure for inflammatory bowel diseases, both for adults and children. But the concept of co-production and partnership that is the DNA of ICN is very unique. It has resulted in a number of innovative ideas and projects and deliverable tools, has informed and generated research agendas and projects. Dr. Colletti referred to the combined study and produce study. These are both federally funded research studies, one looking at combination therapy and its effects and efficacy, which is the combined study, and the produce study, which is looking at the role of specific types of diet in inducing remission for IBD. And both of these studies are unique and really trendsetters as we engage the families and patients right from the start in the protocol design, in reaching out to the sites to set up research in their centers. They have been very instrumental as partners in our one-on-one reach outs to the sites to review best practices, enrollments, and they have really brought a unique and an innovative sense of urgency as well as involvement to these research studies. Having done a number of research studies before, this was something really, really unique that was an amazing thing to uphold when we were sort of talking to different sites. The Patient Advisory Council, as Dr. Colletti alluded to, has developed many tools that are, again, developed by the stakeholders for the sake of the stakeholders and for the clinicians. So we will hear about one of them later today from my own center of Dayton. But the PAC has developed the ostomy toolkit, the IBD medication toolkit, the shared decision making toolkit that we will hear about later on, developed in combination with the parent working group. This partnership again is unique in the sense of this sense of co-production and flattening of the hierarchy. Next slide, please. So what is the next stage of amplifying this co-production? I think developing these tools is the first step. First step in number of deliverables. Having these tools available will not help if there is no awareness and utilization of these tools. So that's where the families and the patients come into play. We need to increase awareness and connect the cohorts with different tools produced by the patients and the parents. We need to brainstorm ideas how to co-produce new resources and tools, and then how to share these with stakeholders so that they can be utilized, because they are phenomenal tools. Next slide, please. So I would end by thanking everyone for joining the virtual community conference. Please reach out to me if you have thoughts and ideas how we can leverage the role of the parents and patients. We have 2 active groups, as previously alluded to. Please join them. Please bring your energy and ideas to the PAC and to the parent working group, and they can help us really do innovative things for the sake of our patients and families. Thank you.